Greetings, everyone, to LRVS America's 2023. I'm your moderator, Douglas Purnell, and without any further ado, let's welcome A.W. Schultz, founder and principal consultant at A.W. Schultz Engineering and Training, as he tells us all about Industry 5.0 and what you need to know.
All right. Thank you, Douglas. Good day to everybody out there. Yes, I'm going to be talking about Industrial 5.0. And to get started, I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see my presentation as it folds out. And as I go, I'll introduce myself a little bit more throughout the presentation. But I'm happy to be here with LRVS. This is my second time being on this platform, and it's always been fun for me to get a chance to talk about some things that are passion for me and to mingle with others in this type of industry. So what I wanted to start with today is just giving you my story. Have you ever thought you were not heard? 2 times in my life, I've been distracted, and it's caused bad things to happen. I had just gotten married, and I'd come back to my hometown of Carrington, North Dakota for a reunion. It gave me a chance to talk to old friends and introduce myself to my new wife. My wife and I were having a great time, and at one point, I get a tap on my shoulder. I'm engaged in conversation, and this old friend of mine, who I hadn't seen in a long time, instantly brings back all these memories that we had shared throughout the years. We smile, we hug, we share a moment. And then I turn over and I lean over to my wife and I said, I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Missy. He looks at me a moment, he pauses. He looks at her. You see, my wife's name isn't Missy, but my wife knows who that is. And my friend knows who that is because he went to high school with her. And my wife knows who that is because my mom would always talk about her. And you might ask yourself, how is he still alive? Just by the skin of my teeth. She's decided to stay married with me to torture me for the last 23 years. The second time, I was distracted. I almost lost my job. I had graduated college, and I was hired as a supervisor at a meat processing plant in St. Paul, Minnesota. My leadership style was very hands-on, possibly overbearing, but results-driven. I would multitask to get things done, different jobs, different things going on all the time. And it worked for me for a while. It wasn't until I was standing in front of the plant manager's desk with my boss and the USDA inspector, explaining to them how my multitasking and me being distracted had caused me to break a pipe that was holding a silo of 45,000 pounds of barbecue sauce. The sauce was everywhere. We had no control. It was all over the factory floor, the warehouse. It was complete chaos and mess. In addition to that, the USDA inspector thought there was possible contamination to the product, which led her to put on hold $400,000 worth of product. In addition to that, we had no control of it going down the drains. This highly acidic product was going to have an effect with the water supply of the state capital of Minnesota. The USDA inspector wanted me fired. She thought that the complete root cause of this problem was me, and the only way to prevent it from happening again was to get rid of this guy. I was scared. I'd never been fired. But my boss saw something different. He was able to convince the inspector that we did have control of the problem. We were able to stop the draining of the sauce, and we were able to get the plant back up and running again. But the one thing that was evident is I needed to change my behaviors. My boss used this as a powerful coaching moment, that if I needed to succeed in my career, I would need to focus more on the business long-term and learn to trust my team on the day-to-day. Around the same time, I was also started reading a book. Many of you probably read it, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In that book, I learned about the power of empowering, and I wanted to try it. My boss allowed me to begin meeting with my team daily to talk about problems, celebrate success, and try new ideas. I saw my role as someone to help them remove their barriers and trying their ideas. After a while, it started to work. We started to break records, and those records became the new standard. They were working together as a natural work team, and it was powerful. I would later move on to different roles, different industries, and later on to my own consulting practice. Still, I would always revert back to coach on the power of empowering others. To be able to ask the question, what's in it for them? In a recent Gallup poll, only 23% of employees are engaged in the workplace. We need to engage our employees. 77% of our employees aren't interested. 77%. Now, if you jump forward in my career about 2 decades, I was recently working on my next book, and it was about applying similar factory practices like the story I told. I interviewed people from all over the world, read about every article or book on this topic that I could find. However, I learned about a new theory that completely engulfed me. During my research, what I was working on was only a small part of what is needed to change factories worldwide. I learned about the theory of Industrial 5.0. At first, I thought it was just a cool name and I might incorporate it into future trainings or blogs, which I did. But when I began to study it, I began to understand why it would happen. Then I started to learn how to make it happen.
Real quick, AW, we can see your notes on the side.
Oh. Am I showing the wrong screen? Oh, okay. How's this?
That's better.
All right. In 2020, the European Union asked a team of what I call a think tank, or the economic and social impact of research and innovation, or the ESIR, to ask how we were going to meet the Paris Agreement of a net zero CO2 emission by 2050. The goal was to align the future and the need to protect, prepare, and transform. The group briefed the European Union that we would be embarking on our next evolution. The European Commission introduced the concept of Industrial 5.0. The Union recognized that the industrial transformation, primarily driven by factors related to 4.0, needed to better framework to achieve Europeans' 2030 goals to reducing CO2 emissions. This think tank, the ESIR, proposed that Industrial 5.0 would require government and industrial alignment with 3 core elements: sustainability, resilience, and a human-centric approach to driving change. This global idea resonated with me at a factory level. To understand more about Industrial 5.0, I think it's important where I briefly just explain to you what are the other 4 revolutions that we've seen in the history. Beginning with the first. Now, this is back in the 1790s. British and France are at war. There's a labor shortage. Slavery is predominant. But what we saw was a high amount of crafts out there and skilled individuals that led to the creation of the textiles, the agricultural machines, grain separators, and the ability to create power with coal and steam. We wouldn't see another revolution like this for about another 100 years. But when we did, we saw the expansion of railroads, the telegraphing network, the assemblies, and the creation of electricity. The third industrial revolution was around the 1970s, 1980s, and this was called the digital revolution. This was the introduction of the PLCs, the ability to take supercomputers and bring them down to a household item, the continuous flow assemblies, the introduction of robotics. And then there's the introduction of 4.0. And someone may argue we're still in this today. This is the idea of taking large amount of data, putting it into a cloud where you can run algorithms, taking that big data and understanding where all these different informations can be taken from. The Internet of Things, digital transformation, cloud computing, wireless technology, artificial intelligence, the microchips that are out there, sensors, scans, monitors, reactive information, interconnecting data, people, and machines in the value chain. If you look at the history of our 4 industrial revolutions, they all had one common principle. It was about supply and demand, becoming lean, factories and industries being able to profit from the expansion of technologies. The difference between 5.0 and the other 4 is Industrial 5.0 is about the planet and people. Sustainability, resiliency, and human-centric. To understand those a little bit more is to understand what sustainability is. It's the guiding design, production, and the use of products and services to minimize environmental impact, promote social responsibility, and ensure long-term visibility. Pulling all that information in from Industrial 4.0. Resilience, having the flexibility, adaptability, understanding the risk management, the long-term excess of economic and environmental social disruptors. And the third, which you could argue is what makes sustainable, is a human-centric approach. Understanding the people value, the needs, and the capabilities to design and producing. So you might be asking yourselves, what is driving this? There's 3 principles that are driving this organization, this environmental change from Industrial 4.0 to 5.0. It begins with energy transition, moving from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Sources like wind, solar, hydro, geothermal energy. Developing more efficient transportation systems, such as electric and hybrid vehicles. Reducing the dependencies on fossil fuels to more efficient transportation. Implementing carbon capturing storage climate concerns, warming trends, greenhouse gases, extreme weather, loss of animal and habitat, seas rising, food and water insecurities. And the third, which probably what accelerated as we entered into the Industrial 5.0, is COVID-19. Reduced production and manufacturing, shipping and logistics disruptions. What we thought we had all this data and algorithms, only turns out we were wrong on many of our assumptions. Increased demand for essential goods, changes in consumer behaviors, labor shortages, workforce disruptions. Now, early innovators aren't waiting for this to turn into reactive mode. They're being forefront and leading the way on some of these actions. Different ways that you can have impact on these. Environmental social governance, resiliency, understanding ISO 55000 and how it can impact and support your organizations. And the human-centric, having adaptive work management and how it can pave the way for working with your workforce. Some of the key factors when you talk about sustainability. The global 250 companies in the world report sustainability on environmental, safety, and governance matters, 96%. The reports here show that many organizations that are early innovators are concerned about some of the sustainability actions that are paving the way for what we see in the future. Some of the key drivers, so some of these programs, is there a demand for alignment with organization and individual values, the investor demands, and regulatory and compliance pressure. Bloomberg Intelligence predicts that in 2025, assets under an ESG governance will reach $53 trillion. And that is a global level. So if we talk about sustainability, what does resiliency do in 5.0? ISO 55000. It's taking what we already know from Industrial 4.0, where some of the new disruptive technologies and mature enough to leverage in the industry. ISO 55000, we've got the ability to have inexpensive big data storage, the information. It's fast and responsive. And we're taking that wireless and cloud capabilities. Some interesting trends about resiliency, and we talk about digital transformation. Given its importance, digital transformation spending is forecasted to reach in 2026 with a 5-year compound growth rate of 16.3%, according to an international data correspondence. 54% of organizations reported a positive business impact and greater profits due to digital transformation efforts. 76% of executives agree that organizations need to dramatically redesign their experiences that unite technologies and people for a human-centric ways. When you look at resiliency, it can be a combination of what you put in and what you get out. Digital transformation correlates what we have as far as technology, the enablers, with process, the enhancers, to unite them and taking the data to maximize our efforts within our factories. Things like circular manufacturing, model-based product production, having fully automated factories, and data-driven business models are paving the way for what we see in the future. But all this doesn't have a lasting impact if we don't embrace and empower the human-centric approach to it. To understand what the human-centric, to think about it, is an adaptive work management strategy. It's an enabling framework for managing the people side of change. prepare, support, and equip individuals to drive change success. Adaptive work management focuses on a transparent and ethical leader's behavior and encourages an open sharing of information needed to make decisions while accepting followers' input. The idea is to be flexible in a way of thinking that considers the culture of the time and work with people to adapt change in a manner that the majority can support. Agile methodologies and human sincerity, increasing focus on delivering value to the organization by continually improving products and services. So all that sounds great, but when you talk about the human-centric, the people side of change, often it can have a high amount of resistance. Some main resistance to change is lack of process visibility, resource availability, resource skills, planning, difficulty measuring the outcomes. If we can't bring all these together, driving change at a human-centric level will be unsuccessful. So how do factories progress in this? Well, it begins by understanding what is the level of factories that we have out there. And in this slide, we essentially can talk about 6 types of factories. You look at your pre-digital factory. They are paper-based processes. They've got a lot of manual. They are a reactive mindset, low-level automation, basic PLCs. You move your digital silos. They've got some manual processes, batch records, site-specific systems. But as an industry, they are not connected with one another. Departments are walled off and there's no communication. Connected factories, vertical integration, electric reporting, documents. They're enabling ISSO 14224, 55,000, and are looking to progress. Then you have predictive factory, integration of product development, manufacturing, advanced production technologies. They're starting to use these. Online technology is being integrated throughout. Simulations used to process modeling improvements. The 5th is adaptive factory. Enterprise integration, the integration of factories within the supply chain. Advanced production technologies, end-to-end supply chain visibility with limited external collaboration. Plug and play, minimal system downtime. And then finally, what is an early innovator is an autonomous factory. This is a full end-to-end value chain integration with supplier and customer. Collaboration manufacturing environment, a plug and play environment from instrumental and sensors. Zero defect mindset. Inline, real-time, continuous, closed loop process verification control within automated real-time quality corrective actions. Adaptive analytics and machine learning across the value chain. Taking that resiliency, digitally transformation, and incorporating into the factory. Now, this is called the law of diffusion of innovation. It was developed by Everett Rogers, who wrote the phenomenon in 1962 when he created this theory. Essentially, it's human beings are slow to change beliefs and actions through some people, and some are eager to do the same. Early innovators are embracing 5.0. They are taking the steps to set up their companies for the future. Other companies, the other 34% early majority, late majority, and then you have 16% laggers. These companies aren't going to last. When we talk about how they're going to be incorporated into 5.0. It doesn't go without saying that there's got to be a relationship between government and corporate governance if we're going to embrace Industry 5.0. Policy processes, including regulatory change, they need to focus on breaking path of dependencies. Compliance processes need to happen in parallel. Strengthening the framework for corporate social responsibility. Now, I've worked with close to 800 managers and frontline employees over the years in many different factories. And the problem is always the same. If factories want to drive change in sustainability, factory leaders need to embrace their teams. The European Union was looking for a global strategy, but it can be reduced into a factory level. If you're somebody who has a team, if you're a factory leader, if you run a team, here's something I want you to do. I challenge you in the next 30 days, schedule a meeting with your team, all the way down to the frontline staff, and ask what they could do to create a greener, sustainable workplace. Get ready to gather the feedback, maybe even record the meeting. These are the steps to engage the other 77%. When we get involved within Industry 5.0, we create a collaboration between team and leadership. We create a fast track to help reduce CO2 emissions and get our companies and our factories greener. Thank you for sitting in for my presentation, Industrial 5.0. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
That was a great presentation. I actually have a few questions for you. All right, so we're speaking about technology 5.0, right? So what I was realizing is, like, as each iteration came out, the timing got a little shorter, right? So that means we're getting a little close to 6, right? So me being that person, in your opinion, what do you think would be the next?
I've thought of that myself, and I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea. I think the embracing of 5 is going to be a big change, because I wouldn't say we're there yet, but the writing is out there that shows that we have to move into it if we're going to meet some of our goals for CO2 reduction.
Okay, and that actually comes to my next question, right? So we have this 2050, global, target date for zero emissions or carbon neutral, right? So how close do you think we are, and what is the limiting, agent to us actually achieving that goal?
I don't think we're close at all. I'm citing sources out of Europe, and they are leading the way. India is making a lot of steps to try to reduce carbon emissions, and the same thing with other countries. The United States, it seems to more be a hobby than it is a practice. And if you look at the law of diffusions, as the United States, we're certainly not the early innovators to it. We probably will be the laggers.
Okay, and we have a minute left, so I'm gonna give you a second to, what's something that you would like to say and give to everyone here?
I challenge you to go with your workforce and ask them the question. 5.0 is about a human-centric approach, adaptive work management, empowering your people, and asking them what they can do to help you to drive greener factories in the future.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. I loved it personally. I hope the people out there watching liked it as well. So if you can, just let everyone know where they can contact you, or they can if they have any questions.
Yeah, if you look at me at AW Schultz on LinkedIn, or you can look at my website at awschultz.org.
Okay.
You can find me there.
Yes. Well, thank you once again. Wonderful talk. And everyone, have fun at LRVS. And thank you once again for giving this discussion.
Thank you, Douglas.
Bye.
All right.